Daren Wendell.
Hey, you fish freaks. Welcome to episode number 77 of the KFO show, brought to you by the Wendell Fishing YouTube channel. Over 1,500 video, folks. If you haven't been over there, I got daily shorts, daily community post, weekly podcast, and we just hit 11 million views. So thank you all who are a part of that. I appreciate you. Upcoming, we got some nice, really great individuals coming on the show over the next couple months. I already have booked World's Worst Fishing. I've had him on before. It's gonna be awesome. I love what he brought to the table last time. We got Chad Hoover, Creek Fishing Adventures, Alex Rudd, Headbanger Lures, and Dalton Albright already booked through January. And if you happen to know anybody, you were like, hey, you think they'd be a good guest on the show? Hit me up. I'll ask them. All I can do is I promise I'll ask them. So I've had some good luck. A lot of great people on the show. But tonight, I have the mastermind behind the Deep Dive app, Braden Jenkins. We're going to be talking about how to use technology, not forward-facing sonar, how to use just technology available to us to help catch bigger bass and more bass. And so, Braden, welcome to the show, brother. How you doing?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for hopping on. Now, here's where I'm at on this, right? I'm at like, okay, I would love to have forward-facing sonar. I just can't afford it. And so what are some lower cost options that are going to help me move the needle and help those who watch the channel and want to continue to grow, but can't afford the $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 for forward-facing sonar? I believe that your app takes a lot of the science into it, which I love, right? Which I believe is going to really help us gain more yardage, not just tweak. I mean, like literally gain more yardage. And so I want to hear your story. I've been with Deep Dive when you guys first came out. It was a couple years ago. I've been using Deep Dive. I'm continuing to use Deep Dive today. If you guys are listening to or watching some of my bait videos in November, I had a plug for them because I think it's a really great tool, and we'll get into that bait tool in a moment. But let's back it all the way up. Braden, I want to hear your story. Why a fishing app?
Sure. So I have been obsessed with fishing like as long as I can remember, and I'm not very good, and it's frustrating. And I have tried throwing money at this problem, and this problem has gotten so crazy that I tried to build an app with experts to help me, catch more fish. And so that's sort of the origin story of the Deep Dive app is me and a couple other software developer friends I have. They had this really cool radar app that they'd built, and we're having a hard time, selling it and making a business out of it. And I was like, guys, fishing, it's so underserved. Fishing. And so I finally talked them into it. And so we reached out to Johnny Schultz from Fish the Moment.
Oh yeah.
Like, hey, we have this idea for this app. Are you interested? And he got back to us pretty quickly. And, over the course of probably a year, nights and weekends, we were just building this thing on the side until we launched it in the beginning of January. End of January 2022.
Okay. I mean, I was right on the heels of that.
You were. I think you might have been the first YouTuber to ever reach out to us about it.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right.
Other than Johnny.
Yeah. So. No, that's great. I'm glad it was part of the origin story. So not an easy task to do what you've done. And so I'm a little curious to hear a little bit of the story, some of the hurdles as an app designer in the fishing space, because there's quite a bit of them, right?
For sure.
Some good, some bad, some terrible. But so tell me a little bit about that market. I'm curious.
Sure. So the original idea for the app, I don't know if you'd seen, there was a Lake Master, I think, 3D PC software. I think it was called Contour Elite or something like that.
Okay.
And you could see the lakes in 3D, and it was not very good. and I worked, I knew these other software developers, and they're 3D, graphics engineers, and I was like, if we could show the lake in 3 dimensions, like take a topo map or a contour map and show the lake in 3 dimensions and let you spin around it and see like how cool would that be. And it turns out that nobody wants to license you that data. none of the contour map providers will license that data. So we couldn't actually build that product. And so we pivoted. And the first version of the app you had, you'd reached out, was sort of just like it's the baits tab now on the app. And it was a crazy, data set there to pull that together and to build that thing. And it basically just took the weather into account, the fishing season.
Yep.
Which at the time when we launched was we used water temperature. There was a water temperature input. We found out later that year that was not good enough. We were sort of using the water temperature to determine the fishing season that it was in.
Okay.
And we were out on Lake Fork, I think in April of 22, when we realized that we were using the water temperature, and it was saying that it was post-spawn, and the fish were definitely still pre-spawn.
Yeah.
So
everybody letting you know it.
Yeah. So we got rid of that water temperature input and replaced it with you let the user pick the season. We were trying to make it as simple as possible, so that anybody that didn't really know, if they could just put in, the water temperature, if they wanted to fish shallow or offshore, if they're fishing in a wind protected area or not. And then we would use the weather data and everything to pull together a set of strategies for you. And so that was the first version of the app, and it worked out pretty well.
Yeah, I remember. I mean, that was kind of the app, right? Now it's much more robust, and we'll get to that in just a little bit. But before we hop into there and get into the tactical, the space of fishing apps, right? What's your biggest hurdle as a company?
That everybody thinks that you can just take any app or whatever app it is, and that it will give you the spots to fish, and you can just go to that spot. Somebody caught a 7-pound bass on this spot. I'm going to go there and I'm going to catch it too.
It's still there. Yep. It's just waiting.
It's still there. It was caught 3.5 years ago.
Still there.
In a different season. The wind was blowing and it's not blowing right now. And that's not at all how it works. So, any apps that have these spots that, that users put their fish catches in there, that it's not very useful, because so many factors go into why that fish was there when that was caught. You need to know the season, the weather, what the weather has been doing the last few days.
Yeah.
You got to know, water conditions, is like the water clarity, the lake level, has it been raining? Has the lake been rising or falling lately? All these things factor into why that fish was caught right there. So just a spot is not good enough. You need a whole lot more information to find those fish. So
yeah. Well, let's go ahead and hop into what some of those are, because I can tell just by talking to you and the fact that you're a program designer, right? Is that the right word?
Programmer, software engineer.
You're a software engineer.
Fancy title is software engineer, but I'll take programmer also.
There you go, programmer. So your mind thinks in a way that's scientific, right? And so that's how you're approaching this app. And I would imagine, since it's built by a lot of programmers and a content creator, that's essentially the baby you get is what we're going to be talking about here. And so one of the first tools, let's hop in. And then for those of you listening, and we're going to try to talk this through, because it's a bit visual, but I believe that we can do it. Let me bring up this photo here, which is just a screenshot of your bait tool. So let's take a look at this guy right here. Walk me through what I'm looking at and all the different filters that a user can do to this to make it work for them on their lake. So share the science behind it.
Sure. So this filter, you first select your lake. And when we launched the app, it may have had 500 lakes on it. Then we got up to 2,000 or 2,500. And this year we released a feature where you can add almost any body of water in the United States even if we don't officially support it.
How's that work?
So the USGS has this water body data set that has all the water bodies in the US. And so we basically took all of the water body outlines in that whole data set and let you select any of them in the app. And you can add a pond in your backyard as long as it is in that data set. There's been some issues where, there's a new lake here in Texas, Bodark, and it was just opened. And so that data set doesn't yet have that lake in it. Okay. So there's a couple of these like really new lakes that aren't in that data set, but pretty much anything that's, probably 8 years or older is in there.
Okay.
So all the major lakes and rivers and everything.
Sounds like anyway, a nightmare getting all that to map over to your app, by the way.
Yeah, it was a lot of work. A lot of crazy things have gone into this app so far. A lot of work. So
real quick, before you hop in, where did you pull the data? Because I see on your website it says this is backed by real tournament intel. What does that mean?
So what that means is we've actually paid professional anglers to watch live streams of professional events. So the Bass Live or MLF live streams.
Oh,
and so they're recording where those fish are being, like a whole bunch of information about the fish catches in those events. So where the fish being caught, we aren't using the spots, but we break our lakes into sections. And so we have the upper end, the mid lake, the lower end, and then we break them into minor sections where we have, the first half of creek, the back half of creek, the main lake, the main river, backwaters, all these things. And so we have all these sections of the lake. So when we're recording these catches, we're saying, this fish was caught in the back half of the mid lake,
right,
or something like that. And so we have the sections of the lake because the fish, throughout the different seasons move around the lake, and these bigger sections can pretty much universally be used in reservoirs. It doesn't really work for natural lakes as much or rivers, but the reservoirs is I think it's like 80-something% of our users are fishing on reservoirs, so
awesome.
It works great for them. And so we record the section of the lake that the fish was caught, the lure, the color of the lure, the water temperature, the weather stuff, the water clarity. So weather would be like wind and cloud stuff, and we record the cover and structure. Just basically a whole bunch of data about every fish catch on there. And these are catches that we've or whoever was recording it, whichever angler was recording it, like watched happen. It wasn't, I heard a guy caught an 8-pounder on this. So, it's like observed data. It is real.
Hold up. Where was I when you're paying people to watch fishing all day long and record notes? I don't know.
I know what?
Everybody listening in right now.
It sounds fun. It is painful. It is.
How many hours have you shopped out for this?
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's been at least 4 anglers were doing it for, I don't know, 6 months or something to get the initial data set. So
I didn't know that's how you did it. And that is wild. That's like guerrilla data capturing. That is wild.
Yeah. So it is observed data. We're not trying to, go off of what my friend said or hearsay stuff. This is observed, data catches. And because it's on the live streams, they don't have a camera in every boat.
Mm-hmm.
They have the cameras in the leaders' boats. And so generally the fish catches that you're recording are the bigger fish catches of the event. So
makes sense to me.
So our data set is not only where the fish should be, it is where the bigger fish should be. And so now we have like 10,000 fish catches in this database. And so when you click on the baits tab, it is not using the raw tournament data. It's more of a massaged sort of data set than using, say, the tournament patterns map. But the reason it's like that is so that it could fit into every so we could basically fit it to every lake type.
Right.
So yeah.
Those you listen, no, yeah, those you listening in, we're looking at this. It has 3 different water clarities at the top that you can toggle, and then it's giving you it's actually giving you a bunch of different lures, telling you what depth that you can fish them in, a picture of that lure, and then a rating of kind of a bars from 1 to 10, it looks like, and then it goes down. And so it's telling you essentially your top bait results is always going to be listed first, or what if you don't know what to throw, this is telling you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, keep going.
Sure. Yeah. And so, this, you pick your water clarity in this tab, and there's a conditions sort of filter down there that has a whole bunch of conditions about if you want to fish shallow or offshore, if there's grass around you, if you're fishing a wind protected area. So just a whole bunch of stuff to filter that data set down as granular as we can. And then when you tap on one of these suggested lures in there, it will give you, where in the lake you should be throwing this lure, like what section of the lake you should be throwing, what cover and structure you should be, targeting with this specific lure. And it even has a video of a retrieve in there that sort of explains, how you would retrieve this. Yeah.
I love that part, because every lure has a different retrieve. It's going to tell you, I'm getting ahead. That's probably what you're going to share. It's going to tell you the rod, the action, the power. It's going to tell you the line that you should be using. It's literally going to show you the retrieve on it. There's a little video. And then it's incredible if you're like, guys, there's so many different lures out there. Every single one has a different retrieve. And I guarantee you, if you watch these videos, you'll be like, oh, I was doing it wrong. Which is just wild. Doesn't matter how long you're fishing, and you might have success in the way that you were doing it, but this is going to give you a whole different action, and you might just be surprised what your results are. All right, keep going. I'm sorry. I get jacked up about this stuff.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah. So really the point, I think, of this baits tab, this was, like I said, the first version of the app. This is the as they say, the minimum viable product or whatever, get it out the door, see if people like it. And people liked it. It worked well. I think it's more of a beginner sort of thing. So, we released this and we, when we showed it to beginners, they thought it was awesome, especially young anglers that are like just getting into fishing. Like, this is incredible for them, because it sort of guides. There's so many factors involved in picking your lure and what you're supposed to be doing. And like you said, like, what gear do you use? How do you retrieve it? So this is a really great feature for beginners. But, when we started talking to more experienced anglers, they're like, yeah, that's cool. Not very useful for me, So that's when we moved on to the next thing, which was the tournament data map. And so what we did there,
the patterns map.
Yeah, the tournament patterns map.
Like this one.
Yeah.
All right.
And so what we did here is, like I said, we break our lake into sections, and so we have different colors on, with each section of the lake on here. And it goes from a light gray to a dark blue. And the light gray is that there's less patterns or fish catches over there. We're calling them patterns. It's a pattern fishing app. But it's really coming from, like, each one of those was a fish catch that was recorded in there. So it's
from the professional,
from the database.
Yep,
yeah.
Got it.
And so what it's doing is it's searching that database and, matching all of your current weather conditions and stuff. As many of these filters, like right now in this image that you're showing, it's got a post spawn season in there, but you can change it to spawn or pre-spawn or whatever, any fishing season.
Yeah.
And then, this is showing the number of catches we had in each one of these sections of the lake. And it's not going to be, this image is showing 10 killer ferry. Not all these patterns are going to be, if any of them are going to be from 10 killer ferry. What we're doing is we're taking lakes that are similar features to 10 killer ferry and mapping that data set onto these lakes. And breaking the lake into sections really helps with, mapping those things back onto the lake. But if you only were showing professional tournaments on 10 Killer Ferry, how many pro tournaments that we have videos of are on that lake. It wouldn't be a data set that's big enough to cover all the different conditions,
Sure.
the weather conditions and seasons and stuff. So that's why it's sort of normalized for lakes that are similar. So this is a highland reservoir in northeast Oklahoma. And so other highland reservoirs like Grand Lake and stuff would probably be similar to 10 Killer Ferry, and that would be pulling from the same data set. Yeah.
Well, this makes sense to me, right? If you have a professional angler and he's on one lake versus the other, if it has all the same signs, he's going to go to the same places on that lake that look like the other lakes. So that makes sense to me. All right.
Yeah. And then if you tapped on any one of these sections of the lake, it will pull up a list of those patterns. Like say one of these sections said that it had 8 patterns. Then this list will have what those 8 patterns were, and the same water clarity selectors at the top for clear, stained, and dirty.
Yeah.
And
so those of you listening in, we just clicked over to that, and so one of those patterns is, for instance, drop shot, offshore, largemouth bass, plus rounded point, plus looks like underwater structure. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's like brush pile, probably.
Yeah, brush pile. That's kind of what you're looking for. Another one is a 10-inch worm offshore on ledge. And what's the I can't make that
Shell
out.
bed.
Shell bed. Got it. Awesome. And another one's deep diving crankbait, channel swing point, and looks like rock piles.
That's right.
So yeah.
Yep. And so this is the patterns from the database in this section of the lake. And so what you would do is you'd pick one of these sections of the lake that had a lot of patterns, because that means there should be more fish catches in that section of the lake. And then you would search for these cover and structure combinations in that section of the lake and go fish those with these lures.
Yeah. No, this is great. So if you were to, it looks like there's an arrow to click over. Once you click into that, where does that take you?
Yeah,
I don't have a photo of that, so I don't know where.
Yeah, it's basically the same as we were looking at the baits tab when you clicked on one of those lures, on one of those baits.
Got it.
Yeah, it's the same. The retrieve and gear and all that stuff is in there. It's pretty much the same thing.
Okay, so the main things you're doing when you go from clear to stained to dirty, it's going to change likely the color and contrast of your lure, and it's also probably going to go from something that may be in clear water, more visible, to something in murky or muddy water, something a little more vibration or knockers or clickers, right? That's the general idea.
Yeah, and these on this tab or this section of the app, these clear, stained, and dirty are actually, we have two there. It says there's 2 clear waters, 6 stained, and 0 dirty. So we have 2 patterns that we observed on the live streams that were in clear water, and 6 that were in stained water. So that's where those are coming from, and it's whatever the angler was using when they caught those. So yeah, it's if the water is dirty in this mid lake, I don't know what section this is specifically, Back Havoc Creek or whatever, we don't have any patterns for that, so maybe avoid that area.
Mm-hmm. No, 100%. You don't have to answer this, but I have to ask it. Who are the professionals that you have watching this stuff?
Well, I know Matt Steffen was helping us.
Okay.
Honestly, I can't. Johnny was sort of in charge when we were recording that, so I don't even really remember anymore.
All good. I was just curious. That's a name that's familiar. All right, so you have we went through the bait selector, the bait tool, which I think it's fantastic. I do a lot of videos. I actually do one a month, and I actually start picking up steam at the end of the year. Essentially, I title them all the same thing. 6 outfish your friends with these 6 bass lures, and I personally like it, and I love partnering with you on those videos, because like, okay, I'm giving you 6. However, there's, like I said, these are variables that work for me and my bodies of water that I fish that are, probably within an hour distance. However, that's great if you live around me or in Northeast Ohio. However, it might not be the greatest thing for you to be watching if you live in Texas. Maybe not. I mean, there are some generalities. You want to use I try to give as much of the data as I can. This is the water temperature I'm fishing in, so you can pull some truth out of it. But I really like to pass people off to this app because it's going to be more, like you said, when you go in, it's asking you probably 15 different questions about the type of water you're fishing. Is it grassy? Is there rock ledges? Is there this? Is there that? Is there this? And then it puts together something that's custom to you. And that's a lot of different variables you're taking into consideration. And so I think this is like I said, great for a beginner too. And I would say even too amateur if you're a lifelong learner.
Yeah. And those questions you're talking about, we have people that, especially if they're beginners, don't really know the answers to some of those questions, or they answer them wrong. But that's okay, because what that's actually doing is it's almost like a survey. And so we submit your answers to our survey, to our server, and we crunch them all with everybody else who's answered it. And we sort of come up with a crowdsourced answer to, which of those, bait and cover and structure is available on your reservoir.
Yeah. I love it. You're always crunching data, always making this thing better. Backing out a little bit. What has been the biggest jump in technology, or at least in iterations of the app over the years? What was the biggest one you're like, man, that really is going to set us apart?
It's everything feels like it's going to be big, and then we release it and it's like it moves the needle a little bit further. But the one thing that we sort of released as we can do this, but we don't think it's super important, was the wind effects map. We released that at the end of last year. I personally thought it was not going to be a big deal.
Yeah.
And then when we went to the Bassmaster Classic this year, we had a booth and we were talking to a lot of people, and everybody loved the wind effects map of all things. And it was like, what?
It's not like you're not polling people and getting feedback. So this is, for this to be out of left field, it's probably like a head scratcher.
Yeah, it was sort of a head scratcher. So like, it was not the hardest thing to make. The water clarity map is crazy hard to make.
Right. We're getting there in a minute. We'll get to all these things that we're talking about in a minute.
But. It's definitely the wind effects map. And so this year we've leaned more into the wind effects map, and we just released an update to it, and
which is great for kayak anglers. We'll let you know at the end. That'll be one of the last things we talk about, but I think this is really great.
Yeah.
On a variety of different levels for us who are fishing out of kayaks. All right. Now, since you talked about the wind effects map, let's do it. It's up next. The Grand Lake of the Cherokee is what we're looking at. For those of you listening in, well, I'll let Braden kind of walk you through what we're looking at here.
So the wind effects map was a bank effects map. Like it was sort of like what the waves were doing when they hit the banks, before we updated it a couple weeks ago. And so what it was actually doing, I see a bunch of comments and stuff on videos, and they're like, well, you can't just lick your finger and stick it in the air and know where the wind's blowing. And it's like, yes, you can, but it's hard, especially if you're on a big reservoir, knowing where all the banks are getting hit, at what angles and stuff. So what we were doing is actually calculating the magnitude of the wind over a distance of water and sort of estimating the size of the waves when they were hitting the bank. And we were also taking into account the angle that they were hitting the bank. So if they were like a glancing hit or a direct hit. And so we have these different colored circles all across the banks that sort of show you, a brown is a light sort of wave hitting the banks there. A yellow is a more intense, and a red's a pretty intense wave hitting sort of directly on those banks. And then what we released recently is this waves like all in the interior of the lake. And so, like you said, for kayak anglers, I think this is probably, one of the more kayak focused features here, where we do that same calculation over, the wind over the water. But we also, we put little sort of markers all over the lake, and so you can see like what the waves are at all these different points all across the lake. And so you can see all the protected areas, all the really heavy choppy areas, and you can scroll backwards and forwards in time with this map, and you can see, if I'm a kayak angler and I want to go fish this area, but I know I've been caught, unprepared before in that area, this will let you quickly scan through and see like what the forecast waves are going to be in that area before you go out. So you can sort of plan, okay, looks like by 1 o'clock, I need to be boogieing out of here, or I'm going to get stuck.
Right. And yeah, so when you say so light blue is going to be calm pockets of water. You kind of goes up from there to like light brown is red, like danger. What are we looking at here? And what do we like these colors, generally speaking, but what's the data behind them? Is calm, 6 inches, and then light brown is going to be, what's that look like?
Sure. So we're actually plugging all of this information into a wave like forecast model. Okay. And so what number comes out the other side of that model is the wave height and meters. And so we sort of map that to colors to make it a little, more digestible. But in general, yellow is going to be, brown is going to be, just a little bit of waves. Yellow is going to be some chop, and red's going to be white caps probably. And we are toying with the idea of adding, a more danger color in there. Like, even if you have a boat, you should probably avoid this completely, because right now, you could probably even in a kayak go out in some of the red areas, but probably would like to avoid it.
Yeah, potentially be okay. Depends on
but as far as like threatening, danger area, like we're looking at adding a fourth color in there to sort of mark those areas off, so you can be warned.
Yeah, I mean, what's more danger color than red? Where do you go with that?
Dark red.
You're gonna have little skulls floating out there in the middle.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at this. Two things for those who are listening in are like, hey, I'm kind of new to this, so you're gonna help me understand why you have a wind map and you're showing me why the wind's up on the shore. We talked about the safety aspect of it being out in the middle of the water. That makes sense to me. But for someone who's like, hey, I'm new, why are you showing me wind-blown shores?
So, you always hear, where did you catch them on wind-blown points, wind-blown banks? Why are you catching fish on wind-blown points or banks? And it's because if the wind has been blowing consistently, in the same direction, the waves are pushing and stirring up all of this, plankton in an area with these waves hitting one bank or something. It stirs up all this plankton, and then the bait fish come in and eat that plankton, and then the bass come in and eat those bait fish. And so what you're looking for is consistent wind in a bank for 12-ish hours for that to like really start happening. And so this map lets you go 2 days in the past to see what the wind's been doing in the past. You can see, what banks were getting hit all night. And so in the morning, you can pick the best banks that should have the most activity on them.
There you have it, folks. You just got the combination of how to make that work for you. Not only can you see 2 days in the past, right? This is a great, and I always teach this on the channel. You can go out and wing it, right? And you'll get so far, and you'll probably just fish the same lures that you're confident in. And that's what you want to do when you go out fishing. You be you, fish your own lake, right? Do your thing. But if you're trying to like be a lifelong learner and try new things, you can use this app to help you do that. And you can help do a lot of planning by looking at this, because it's also going to show you 7 days into the future, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're sitting here on Monday and you're like, oh crap, I got to work, no one's looking, I'm going to hop on the old deep dive app and see what Saturday looks like. Instead of like, oh, all right, the last 48 hours before Saturday, on Thursday and Friday, this bank has been getting beat up. So you know exactly you can start picking all the points, and you can start mapping out where you're going to run your kayak or run your boat or whatever it is that you're going to do. Or even if you're bank angling, you're like, hey, this is a place I can park. I can hop in. I can try this other one where I can park, walk out to the point. This can move the needle for you. So
for sure.
There's a 3D option in here. And so what we're looking at right now is just looks like this 2D, right? And so this just basically brings it down. How far can you zoom in, and is there any value in that, or it's just some options that you have here?
Yeah, I think marginal value probably. It's got a 3D terrain map on there, and so you can, if you have a lot of elevation change in your area, you can see all those. You can see that elevation by tilting into 3D. I personally don't use it, but I also live in North Texas and everything's flat.
Everything's flat. There you go. All right, we're going to switch gears to one of the other options you have here. Let's talk the water inflows map. And so for those of you listening in, this is another map where the lake is just blue, right? There's nothing there. However, all the tributaries and all the entry points to the tributaries are shown. And so it looks like a vein everywhere around this lake. So walk us through how you created this, why you created this, and how it's valuable to an angler.
Sure. This is from that same USGS data set. And so they've mapped out all of the creeks and streams and rivers and inflows into a lake, into, pretty much the whole country. All the streams and creeks are mapped out. And so we have these color coded with a blue color being a lower inflow and a purple being a higher inflow. And these aren't real-time inflows. These are the annual averages. So, the purples are going to have over a year are going to have more inflow than the blue areas. And so you can sort of use this to pick out, how big is this creek that feeds into this back of this creek? Like, is it, it just rained. Is it going to be all muddy, or is it not a very big creek and it doesn't really matter? Or,
right. It's going to be blown out. Well, maybe one of the bigger dots might be blown out on. So you got to do some math in your brain as far as how much did it rain.
Yeah. So the other thing is all of these inflows are going to have creeks that you can't see under the water that are going to be, spots that bass are going to hang out as ambush points. They're all going to have little, channels into the water. And so, we've had anglers say, hey, I went down this stretch of bank and there's just one spot that I was catching all these fish, and it all looks the same to me. And then they look at this map and they're like, oh, there's an inflow area that's must be some sort of seasonal creek or something that I didn't really notice, and that's where the bass are hanging out. Is where that inflow is. Yeah. Even if it's not currently like flowing, knowing where that channel is coming into the lake is super useful. We're actually working on an enhancement to this right now. I don't know when it's going to come out because we're still prototyping it, but there is this forecast water model that NOAA has for the whole US that they use for flood forecasting. And it's I think it's a 10-day model. So you can see what the estimated inflows are into the lake in a 10-day forecast. And so that's what we're integrating currently. So you will have that real time and forecast inflows, not just the annual averages.
Okay. Well, there you go. Always updating this bad boy. All right. I think I got some questions up here. I've kind of been ignoring them. Sorry, guys. And we might get some of those a little bit. I got to start a few here. All right. Bassin with Big Malone asked the question, do you keep a check on pressure, moon phases, and things?
What was that?
So moon phases, is there a part of the app that kind of shares how that affects? And really quick, before we answer that question, I have a question for you. Why? Well, never mind. We kind of shared that. So actually, there we go. But stay here. I'm all over the place right now. I got like 17 screens up around me, so I'm trying to manage it all at once. So moon phases, do you have anything in your app that kind of helps with that?
Yeah. So the moon phases affect sort of what time of day the bass are going to be feeding, and if you had a clear sky overnight and a full moon, those bass will have been feeding overnight because they can see. And in the morning, you're not going to have as much activity. But later in the late morning or early afternoon, they're going to feed again, and you're going to see that activity pick up again. The app doesn't predict, when is a good time to fish. I personally, I don't know. This app is sort of built around what I wanted, right? So I don't. If I'm gonna, I have a Saturday open, I'm going on Saturday. Whether something tells me it's a good day to fish or not, right?
Right.
And so we have a weather tab in here where we do have the current moon phase and the major and minor feeding times in there. As well as with sunrise, sunset, first light, last light, all that stuff. So that's all like useful information. We're not using it to predict fish catches or something with it.
All right, so I'm looking at one of the places where you have kind of moon, so solar. Walk me through this page. Obviously, you got your basic weather at the top, and then walk me through, if I'm reading this, what should or could I deduce as an angler to help me get on?
Sure. So the top panel has the air temperature and sort of the sky conditions, so you can tell if it's going to rain or be sunny or whatever, and the temperature. There's a wind section in there that has the wind speed direction as well as the gusts. So I feel like when you're on the water and the wind is blowing 10 miles an hour and you're like, it's blowing 15 or 20. There's no way this is 10, right? That's the gusts. So you're feeling the gusts. And so, having the gusts in the app sort of like helps you, really understand what you're going to be feeling when you're out on the water. And so that's useful. And there's also rain chance and stuff in there as well. It's sort of just like the things and the barometric pressure, just the things that really matter for fishing. It doesn't have, all of the stuff a weather app would have in there. We have all the data. It's just, it sort of feels like cluttered. We're just trying to break it down to things that we think are important.
Yeah. Okay. Let me see. I had another section on here. Oh, this is what you were talking about, the wind gusts, pressure. So barometric pressure, walk us through how that, in your opinion, affects bass behavior.
I think, if you're fishing a shallower, like say you're fishing, a not so deep body of water, I think it has way more effect than it does in these larger reservoirs. I think generally, if the pressure's falling, that's kind of the better time to be out fishing when the pressure is falling, as long as it's not falling too fast. You don't want like huge swings, but if you're fishing a creek that's like 5 feet deep, you're going to see the pressure's 30, 30 and a half or something. That's going to be a way worse day for you than if you were on a boat out on the lake.
All right, I like it. You had a couple other options here on the apps. We'll hop into the best areas map. So walk me through what we're looking at here.
So the best areas map is basically the tournament patterns map with only the highest, like the area that has the highest number of patterns shown.
Got it.
I personally don't like it. It's there to make it
overruled easier in the voting process.
Yeah. It's there to make it easier. The tournament patterns map, like if you just open this app, unfortunately, there's a lot of complicated information we're trying to present. And if you just open it up and you go to the tournament patterns map, you're like, what are all these colors, these numbers? I click on what is going on here.
Sure.
And so this was an attempt at, simplifying that down for people that were just overwhelmed. Open the map. Where do I go? What do I throw? That's sort of the concept behind this. We're in the process of also redoing this and making it way more specific, but we're still building out layers to make that more specific.
Okay, I like it. And one more on here. You have your current flow, and lake level? Which one do you want to start with?
Sure, either one.
Let's go current flow. And for those
Yeah,
of you
so
looking at this, it's just a line. I wouldn't call it line graph. Yeah, it's a line
yeah,
graph.
yeah. It's just this is the current flow. It's just a graph over the last 7 days of what the current's been doing. This one is useful where you can sort of pick up the patterns on when they're generating power and when they're pulling from the lake, and so you can sort of use this to determine when you think they're going to be doing it the day you're fishing.
Okay, so what's I'm
Mhm,
looking at this. You have it goes from 0 CFS to 35,000 CFS.
mhm.
I wouldn't even know what that is, to be completely honest with you.
That's cubic feet per second. So
Got it.
that's the volume of water coming through the dam. And so this is Lake Eufaula, and so they're generating, they're power generating on this lake. It looks like at a specific time each day. It's sort of consistent at what time they're generating power. And this is if you have a power plant lake or you're on a TVA reservoir or something, this is must know information. The
Sure.
current flow.
I mean, like Gunnersville is like this,
Hmm.
right? It could
Yeah,
be, yeah.
yeah. And so this it it's in the app to make it easier, like have everything, all the data in one place. We're actually pulling this from government websites for you. If you go try to find this data yourself, sometimes those websites work, sometimes they don't. They're all ugly and frustrating to use.
And
So
code, I would imagine.
yeah. So this is we're trying to pull from all these different sources for you to put them in the app, and then it's actually pulling. We pull the all of this data and put it on our server, and then the app is hitting our server. So you're not hitting these weird government websites. So if their website goes out or their back end goes out, you will still get the data from our back end. So.
Wow, there you go. Look at that. They should just hire you to run their website, apparently. Lake level.
Lake level, same thing as the current flow. This is really useful for knowing what has the lake been doing lately. If you're on one of these, like I said, like these TVA lakes where they drop the lake down to like a winter pool, knowing that they're doing that and how fast that lake is coming down really affects the fishing conditions. So
Right.
this is just a useful. I use this as a dumb thing. I just go clicking around all the lakes around me after it rains and look at how they're all coming up. Because Texas, we have these droughts, the lakes go down by like 8-10 feet. And then I like to just go around the map, clicking on these lakes and looking at the lake levels and see what's going on.
Okay. So this is going to help. This is going to be helpful for someone for the current flow. So bass are most likely to be feeding when current's moving, right?
Mm-hmm.
Generally speaking. And lake level is really going to show, it's going to help you just know where the bass are being positioned up on. All right. I like it. All right. I got some questions over here. We'll turn back to that. And then we had the weather. All right. And that's essentially, did I miss anything?
The water clarity map is the last one.
Why do I not have that? I'm saving the best for last, kind of. Let me find. Oh, here it is. We just missed it early on.
So the water clarity map is what we're actually doing is we have this company that takes daily satellite. Well, they say near daily. That's another frustrating. Near daily, which means their satellite didn't downlink the data that day, and so they have all these satellites that are low Earth orbit circling the globe really fast, and they image almost the entire globe every single day. And so we then take those images and we create a water clarity map based off of that. The thing is, though, it would be best if we could just show you the raw images. The problem is they are unbelievably expensive. So if we were to show you for example, I downloaded all of Grand Lake of the Cherokee while we were developing this, which is a big lake. It's like 50,000 acres. And it was $250,000 mistake. I was able to get that backed out, so we didn't have to pay that. But one lake to get an image every day for a whole year was $250,000. So it's just unbelievably expensive.
I don't even know what to say right now. That it
So what we
blows
end
my
up
mind.
doing, yeah. So what we end up doing is we take these little like 1 hectare samples, like all over the lake, these little squares all over the lake, and then we determine what the water clarity is in those squares,
You
and
piece
then we
it together.
interpolate between them. Yes, and it's very accurate, and it's cheap, right? Well, it's
Not a
cheap-ish.
quarter mil.
It's not a quarter mil. No, it is much more affordable. We can right now. We don't have every lake in the country on there. I think we have like 150 or 60 lakes that
Okay.
have the water clarity maps on them. So they're going to be the bigger tournament lakes, and you know, the lakes where the water clarity really matters. So more reservoirs in the south. And yeah, so we take these, we get these images every day of these little squares. We figure out the water clarity in those little squares, and that's where this map comes from.
I'm dying right now. How you guys
gotta like
hack that into existence?
Yeah, you gotta like find, you know, solutions around these problems, right? You know, so this is it. You know, when you compare what comes out of this thing versus the raw image, because I can go look at the raw images for like verification validation purposes, and you know, it is dead on. Like it is extremely the interpolation method works, and it's cheap.
You're getting that $250,000 view, folks. For
that's right.
That's
right. If you, man, I wish we could show you the raw images though, because they are really cool to look at when it rains and you can see like all the creeks muddying up, and you see it like over the days getting muddier and muddier, and then it clearing up and stuff. It's really cool. The Hurricane Helene stuff was bad, but like seeing the you know the water clarity from those lakes, like Lake Norman, had mud go all the way down to the dam, which I had heard people had never remembered that happening before. Wow. It's just a huge lake, and yeah, super cool. It's all cleared up now. But this map will actually let you look at the last 30 days of water clarity for you know, maps that we've created. If there's gaps in there, it's because that satellite didn't downlink that day, or we missed, you know, it missed a huge important chunk of the lake. Like it missed like the whole upper section of the lake, and it's not worth interpolating and guessing what the river like water clarity is. And so we don't show anything for those days.
Or it's cloudy, right? You can't even.
Or it's cloudy.
Yeah.
If it's cloudy, it you know, we can't see the lake. So we are just like looking at those little sample points. And it's the other thing is, you know, in the spring it was kind of bad. It was like if the wind was blowing hard, you know, it's causing whitecaps on the water, and it makes everything look much dirtier than it actually is. So those prevent maps from getting generated those days as well.
Yeah. So if you got a question for Braden about this, go ahead and throw it up on the screen here. I am curious a few things. There's a lot of apps out there. There's a lot of apps that have similar features to the features that you just got done sharing with us. However, like most things in life, I'm sure that the way you pull that data, the way you extrapolate that data, and the way you display that data is going to be different from app to app. And I'm not asking you to call out any particular app, but I do want to give you the chance to share what it is, the differentiation. Okay, you may be like, oh yeah, I have that on the app that I use. Oh, I have, Braden, I already have that in the app that I use. What are some things that the user would never know, because we're not a developer? Kind of give us a peek behind the curtain of why maybe if you're looking at this and this is how the data is pulled, why you might be looking at something completely different if you're looking at a different app. So I want to give you a chance because you like the nerd alert right now.
Nerd alert, that's right. Yeah, so you know, this water clarity map, I think unless there's more now, the only one I knew that had it that sort of launched it after us was Omnia. I think that they're using free satellites, the government satellites, which means they sort of pass over an area once every 7-ish days. If it's cloudy, you're screwed. You got 2 weeks. Yeah, you got 2 weeks before you got an image. And so that's, you know, for water clarity, as far as I know, that there's no other app that has, you know, the accuracy and frequency of water clarity maps that we're doing.
Mm.
That wind map, wind effects map, I've never seen that visualized ever before. Like when we first started like putting this together, especially with all these waves inside the lake, it's so cool because you can scroll through time and you can see the wind direction shift a little bit and all of the waves change colors and stuff, and you can see what all those waves should be doing across the lake. I've just never seen that visualization before, and so I think that's pretty cool.
Okay.
And then that tournament patterns data, I also don't know of anybody who's doing that. Collecting the data from observed professional catches.
No, who's doing that? No one's paying professionals to watch, hours on end for months.
I mean, let's say I'm Fish Brain or something, and you've got thousands and millions maybe of these catches logged in your app or whatever. Were you logging all the metadata of what the weather was doing, what structure or cover? Do they even collect the bait? I guess it's the user has the option to say what bait, or if there are pictures there or whatever.
Right.
There's so many factors that go into why those fish were caught. And so this is sort of, trying to take an analytical approach to, where the fish are caught across the lake and on, what are all those conditions that cause those fish to be caught?
Sure. How about the bait tool? Anything that you guys are doing differently that you might find on another?
I haven't looked at the beginner sort of fishing apps in a long time. I don't know if anyone's sort of like copied us on this or brought their feature set up to date. But when we launched this, we were looking around and there was nobody that had the level of detail that we had for all these retrieve videos and gear and where you should be throwing it. It's important to know that when you're fishing, the lure doesn't really matter that much. Like it matters, but if you're throwing it where there's no fish, it matters not at all, right? Like knowing where the fish are matters way more than what lure you're using. And so, we're trying to tell you, even in the bait tool, what section of lake you should be fishing and what cover and structure you should be looking at to be successful.
Yeah, 100%. What other, you got the inflows map, anything we should know?
Man, the inflows map is the brainchild of way more experienced anglers than me. So I can regurgitate what they've told me, which I have. But again, I've never seen other inflows map like this. But this is government data. Like if you search really hard, you could find it, but it wouldn't look good and it would be hard to read. So we're taking a lot of this data out there and massaging it and making it easier to digest and understand, what is actually going on.
Yeah. So walk us through, this is a constant iteration, right? Mm-hmm. What are some of the hurdles you have as deep dive, just in general for fishing? And then what are some, give us the future of what you guys hope to do, or what you can share with me that you hope to do. I'm curious.
Sure. So, the major hurdle is contour maps. It's very frustrating. We can get contour maps from a provider, but they won't let us do anything on top of those contour maps. We don't want to just show you the contour maps. We want to say, hey, here's a hump, in X depth of water. This is where you should be fishing, and this is what you should be using here based on all of our data and everything we have. And we can't find anybody that will let us do anything like that, because technically we're deriving data from their data, and they own that data. And so we're not allowed, it's like they have where the hump is, right? Like you can see on the contour map that there's a hump here. If we put something on top of that hump, then we are deriving data from their data, and we're not allowed to do that. So trying to find someone who will let us license that level of data so that we can build intelligence on top of the contours has been a problem. And so we've been building all these really complex, map layers and stuff around that problem to try to solve other problems in fishing, the water clarity, the wind, all this other stuff to sort of get around not having the contours.
Sounds like once you have the contours map or you find that person, game over, folks.
Yep. We're just hoping, like, once we get big enough, that someone will, change their mind about licensing that. So,
all right. So that's a hurdle. What's something else you got going on, or what? Because there's some things I don't see on Deep Dive that I see on other apps, and one of the main ones is that it's obviously not here, and it must not be here for a reason. Is kind of the fish brain type of approach where people can mark where they caught the fish, right? Less scientific, more, I see people marking fish up on shore 3 miles in, just in the wrong places on purpose. And so that's not here for a reason. So why is it not here?
It's because of that reason. You can't trust fishermen. They're liars. So, like, you can't lie
dirty
to
rats
camera when we watched you do it, So yeah, the professionals can't lie because they're on camera, but users will lie, or nobody wants to, like, give away their spot, right? Like,
No,
I'm not going to log my spot so that some random person can come fish it. That doesn't make any sense. So there's a fundamental flaw in the logic of these spots apps, because no sane angler is going to mark their spots in there,
Well, you got a bunch of beginners to do. And
then
everyone else comes in and kind of watches them. Hey, thanks for that info.
Yeah, burns that hole to the ground. I mean, yeah, I just don't think that model makes sense. So we went a different route, which is taking the tournament data to solve that problem.
Yeah. Send says I use FishBrain to log my own spots. So I get that a lot, right? People don't use it because you can hide it. So we use it just to log. Is there an option within your app to just have a hidden log?
This is something we've talked about doing, and it comes up, I don't know, every 6 months or so. What we want to do is give you a reason to log your fish catches and say, hey, like, we'll look over your last, like, 6 trips or something. We'll be like, hey, we notice on sunny days you're catching way less fish. Here are some things you can do on sunny days to improve your fish catches. And so we want to put, like, intelligence on top of the log,
like AI on top of it.
Yeah.
Essentially,
AI is a liar. I don't know about that. But,
your own AI. All right.
Yeah.
So you're putting some treatments on top of, but you want to individualize it, not a.
Yeah. We want to, like, let you gain insights out of it, so I guess I can back up. What we keep building all these layers, this wind layer, the water clarity map, all this stuff, and that's all that eventually is going to get combined into the best areas map, which is going to show you, wind has been hitting this bank for the last 12 hours. Plus there's an inflow over here, or the water clarity. Like, we're going to combine all of this data into a super map. And so what we've been doing is building all of these foundational maps right now, so that we can build that super map. And so once we have that built, that super map built, I think we'll come back to the fish catch logging thing, because I know a lot of people that are like, I journal, like, all my fish catches or log all my trips and stuff like that, and then I flip back to it and I'm like, oh, I find all these trends and patterns and stuff like that. And I think we could do that fairly easily for you, and save all the data about the weather and all that stuff for you, so that you could see it. But because that's the stuff that matters, right? What when I caught this fish, it was bright, bluebird skies, and then the next day I went there, I didn't catch anything, and it's cloudy, and like, the weather matters a lot to your success and in your trips. And so yes, the logging is something we want to do. It's just not the priority yet.
Sure. No, I get it. I could see your logic behind it. I could see how that could be incredibly awesome once you have all the pieces and all the ducks in a row. Because if you could hide it, but also use it to personalize it to yourself, you turn all of your metadata on. You can make it really quick toggle. Boom, 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 boom. I know I'm a kayak angler, so I could take a picture of the length and that makes it really easy because I could take that anyways.
Mm-hmm.
And then I could see how you could really make a customizable experience based off the weaknesses of that angler and
Mm-hmm.
the strengths of that angler. And it'd be different for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Unlike a lot of the apps out there, which would be kind of, this is just generalized. That's pretty sick what you got going on here. How many years out do you think you are from that?
I would say the best areas map is probably like the mega map, the one map to rule them all. Is probably I don't know. I would say maybe a year out. There's a lot of there's a lot of things that can happen in between now and then, but yeah, it's probably, I would think, maybe a year out.
Okay, all right, I like it. So what's the feedback you're getting? So you're early on feedback, kind of a year later. What's feedback you're getting now? What do people want? You said you were surprised that they wanted the wind mapping. So I'm curious on what people are telling you.
Yeah, people are telling us that they love the wind map. It's the water clarity map is great when it's frequent, right? And so,
and not $250,000.
Not $250,000. Yeah, it's as good as, well, it can get marginally better right now. Like, when we add these forecast inflow maps into there, it might open the door to predicting what the water clarity is going to be.
There you go.
So,
that makes
yeah.
sense.
So that would open that door much wider and allow us to predict what we think the water clarity is going to be, and probably spread it to a lot more bodies of water. But there's so many things you can do. There's so much to work on, right? Like you can build a million different features and solve a million different problems. This is only for bass fishing. We don't have any. You can use all these data layers, the water clarity, wind, all this stuff for any species, and help you be more successful with any species. But we have only, the tournament data and everything is from bass fishing right now. We don't have crappie or catfish. So like, even expanding those that's a frequent, question is like, hey, you don't have catfish or something like that. And it's deliberate because we're trying to be narrow focused and make a really high quality product for one specific thing right now.
Yeah.
And once we have that built out and we feel comfortable with that, expand it into other species after that. So,
okay. So it's on Android, it's on Apple's operating system, so you can get it in both places if you're looking for it. Anything else that kind of in the back of your mind, like, hey, you've been doing? I mean, how do you poll individuals to get this information? Like, what do you guys want next? How do you?
We don't have a great way of doing that right now. We tried some surveys, early on, and it's really hard to write a good survey. It turns out you got to really try. You can't just like throw some questions together, because you get all like these answers and you're like, wait, does this mean this or this? We probably should have been more specific about this question. So the feedback and stuff we get right now is, people send us emails and ask for features or ask questions, and that sort of triggers, things that we end up doing in the app. But really, it was sort of, mind blowing to get all the the in-person customer experience at the Classic this year, and see all these people and show them all this stuff and get their feedback and that's really what point us in the direction of enhancing the wind effects map, is because we didn't know that was a thing many people cared about.
Right.
And suddenly it's like, oh, this is the number one thing people care about.
Could it be where you were at? Because you're going to have more advanced anglers at a place like that.
Yeah, maybe. There was definitely a wide range of skill sets you could tell by just talking to people.
Yes, I'm true. You probably could know by the questions they're asking.
Yeah. So it was wild. Like the people that came to that show were like, I talked to so many people from Idaho, of all places. I was
where was it?
It was in Tulsa.
Oh, Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's not, I mean, I just thought that was super wild. It's like we don't have very many anglers that are like in the app from Idaho. So
Do you do a lot of those type of shows? Like
that was the first one we did. And you know, it definitely made us want to go back because it seemed like we're going to go back next year.
Yeah.
Seems like the best. You get to talk to so many different people. So
it's exhausting. I've done shows like that before. It's
yeah,
like, oh
it
my
is
gosh.
exhausting, but it's also really cool to just get all that, to
Well,
just get to
especially if
talk
it's
to so many
your
people.
if it's your baby, which it is.
Yeah.
You're like, hey, all the feedback, all the questions, because it's just gonna make us better and serve you better. So
For sure.
I like it.
And
I mean,
and so like if anybody wants, if you think something that you don't like in the app or a feature that you want, or send us an email at like support@deepdiveapp.com. And we'd love to hear feedback, positive, negative, anything, helps us guide this towards the better app in the end. Right.
yeah, 100%. So a couple last questions. What are the top questions you get on the app that come through all the time? What are the top 3? And what are the top 2 requested features? And maybe you talked about them already.
Yeah. The top questions that come in have got to be, I don't know. It's like really all over the place. But yeah, most of the questions that come in are just sort of account related.
Got it.
How do I switch? I got a new phone. Like, how do I get it over there and stuff like that. But the top requested features. It's really several times over the last couple months, people have been asking about the shade map. They found some shade map.
Shade map.
Yeah, where it takes like the elevation and trees and stuff, and the angle of the sun to show you like where the shade is. You just move a time slider around, you can see the shade move across an area. And
that's interesting. It seems like something that you would do intuitively on the water.
Yeah. I think that like knowing maybe like what time some of this stuff should be there, or like finding, let's say like I'm fishing a shaded bank and it's like, oh my God, where's another one like this? Being able to pull up a map and quickly see where that is.
It's right around the bend that you didn't know because it's new body water. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm following the logic.
Yeah. Or it's like 3 coves over. It has the same sort of pattern looking things. And if you could see all that at once, that would be super useful. But it's even useful, like even like a sun map or whatever for cold water fishing. You can find like the places that get more sun that heat up
makes
faster.
sense to me too. Yeah, I know. I've been fishing recently. It's freaking cold in Northeast Ohio. It's like 42-degree water. Me and my buddy go out and fishing. We're like, where should we go first? And I was like, wherever the sun's been on the longest. It's like, okay, other side of the lake. Here we go. Send it over here is listening in. He's jacked up about this conversation. The last 7 comments from him. He's like, I could build a survey for you. I'm a certified project manager, CTO, CIO, DMBS, CRMS. I have no clue what all these things mean. I'm sure you do. So he's salivating at the Angler Tech Talk right now. So I love it. Glad. Thanks for chiming in, brother. Thanks for chiming in. Well, we're gonna land this play. Braden, it's been great having you on here. If you guys are interested in the Deep Dive app, I'm gonna throw this link up. I threw it up earlier in the show. You can click on that. Of course, this stuff's all great, but of course, it's not free, right? We just heard a little bit of what it could cost to get the full, satellite image. Obviously, you're not paying that, but paying a portion of that, and it's been your child and your baby between you and a few other programmers and Fish the Moment. And so how does someone get into this? Do you have a free version? Is there not a free version? How much does it cost per month? So forth and so on. So walk us through kind of how your pricing is set up.
So there is a free version. It's not very good because anything useful was expensive to build or expensive to maintain. And so, we have to make money to keep it going. Right. Engineering is super expensive. We're all doing it at, reduced salaries because we're a startup, but we're not getting market salaries right now. We're trying to, take this thing off. and we got a lot of these apps, are probably a guy that is really into fishing, has ideas of how to help other people, and then he goes and pays some, offshore company or some third party development team. We're all developers in-house here. I think, also, I don't mean to toot our own horns here, but we have pretty talented developers on our team. So
yeah,
we can build things, I think, that other people just simply cannot. And so, yeah, the app is got a free version. It's not very useful, but
that's the point of a free version, is to show you all the stuff that's in the paid version.
Right. So, it will give you on that baits tab, it will give you like the top bait for each water clarity or something for whatever the time is right now, like what you should be throwing right now.
Yeah.
And so people use that free version and like it. So that's fine. But the paid version is $80 a year or $20 a month. Really trying to push you towards that that full year. But yeah, it's I don't know, the feedback we got sort of on that pricing was it seemed like for the
value you're bringing,
the uniqueness of like the novelty of these features, seemed like a good price. So yeah, it's we're giving you things that you probably haven't seen before to help you be more successful on the water, and we're going to keep building these things and making them more valuable, and so that's the goal, is just keep tacking important things onto this deal.
Yeah, I it's all how you view it, right? And so a lot of people get into the collect baits. I know guys that have their basements walls full of baits, right? And so what would you pay to catch more bass and bigger bass out on the water? And I think knowledge gets you there faster than any particular bait, any rod, the latest and greatest this, the latest and greatest that. And so you look
at the water clarity map, and if you launch your boat and you drive 8-10 miles up the lake, and the spot you want to fish is blown out, and you got to drive back down the lake, you've paid for how much money?
You paid for half the app already. Yeah,
you paid for a half a year of the app for just avoiding that mistake. So
yeah. And a lot of times people are like, what am I getting? So I hope that if you made it to the end of the show, like, it's nice to know the science behind it. That wasn't just kind of haphazardly put together. Stuff's pulled from real data, and everyone knows how that happens. So I learned a lot on it. I would appreciate. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing, and nerding out with us a little bit. I love the science behind this and all, and I look forward to continuing promoting it, because I think it brings a lot of value to anglers at all levels. So I appreciate what you do. Guys, thank you so much for chiming in. I'm actually here next week as well. I'm ramping this up. I was doing every other week during the summer because it was fishing season. But next week I have Chad Hoover on. We're going to talk about the evolution of kayak design. It's going to be a good one. So I see you next Tuesday night at 8:30 p.m. on the KFO show. Thank you so much. You guys have a good one.